So we had committee discussion last night, and USBE Educator Licensing Coordinator Travis Rawlings provided excellent background and information on what led up to the amendments for R277-501 Draft 4. We heard public comment from the participants that are listed below. I'm not going to go through them. There were about 13, 14, I don't even, which was really excellent. I really think the meeting last night was really beneficial and helped in making even better amendments to the rule. So we took some, do I have to read all these committee actions?
Yeah, just
Okay.
read the motion from the board.
So feel free to read all the different committee actions, but the motion for the board is that the Law and Licensing Committee moves that the board approve the amendments to R277-501 Draft 5 on second and final reading.
You sure it's,
It's not on that sheet.
Oh,
It's not on
it's
that
a white sheet.
sheet.
It's item 10.1 on your board docs if you have it.
best draft on second and final?
Yes.
Okay. The motion before the board is that the board approve R277-501 Draft 5 on second and final reading. Okay. This, oh, I've got the wrong mouse. Okay, Board Member Hanson.
I have an amendment. I would like to, on line 229, add, Angie's bringing it up so you can see it, add "and instruction" after basic special education law. Could I speak to that, Chair?
Please do.
Okay. So, when we were first looking at 501, I asked that we add special education into this section. It was very broad, and so when they made it more specific, they added it as basic special education law. But my concern had to do with a lot of teachers, and we had people who testified before Law and Licensing last fall about teachers who were really getting into trouble, general ed teachers who didn't know how to handle the special education students in their classrooms. And so if I met with Travis and Diana this morning to see if we could put this in a different way so that when they do the module, they have some instruction on how they would instruct special education students and how to handle those students. And this was their suggestion, that we add "and instruction" after basic special education law. And then when we had a module, we could say, if this happened in your classroom, what would you do? Those kinds of things. And so it would give them some opportunities to learn those things before they actually were in the classroom and in that situation.
So we, so I don't believe we got a second right in here.
Sorry.
Second.
Okay.
Okay.
So you've got somebody down? Okay. Discussion to the amendment to the motion, which is on to add on line 229, to add and instruction. To speak, now who wants to speak to the amended motion? We'll start with Board Member Lear.
No, I support this. This is one of the concerns I had. I have some others with this rule,
Okay.
but.
Well, it's- Okay. Board Member Warner?
Oh, I just wanted to say I agree with this. I think that we've seen a lot of issues over the years, and I think that educators walking into a classroom need to have that experience of some education on how to handle special ed issues.
Okay. I'm not seeing any other discussion on the amendment to the motion, and I'll restate the amendment to the motion, and that is to add to line 229 and instruction. So we'll vote on this now. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Voting was unanimous. Okay, we'll go back to the motion as amended. I'm seeking comments. I think somebody, I don't want to call for a vote if you have a, okay. Board Member Lear.
I have several concerns, and I'm going to vote no because of these concerns. I
Okay.
won't torture you with making amendments on every one right now. I've expressed most of them in the past to some staff members, but I think it's very important. I feel very strongly that I want to go on the record as saying I am troubled by these elements. I'll do them really quickly, and then I'll just vote no. I won't expect to amend it right now. I do say that I hope that as we go forward, even before this temporary rule, or call it a placeholder, or whatever you want to call it, is fully implemented, that I hope you'll consider some of these things. But because I think that they are things that make this rule, I think, untenable, and I think there's some things that the board is reaching beyond its authority. And I'll just mention 3 of them specifically. I didn't get this, I didn't see this version from last night until just now, so my line numbers are based on the last draft 5, but I think you'll get the gist. First, on line 9, the board has the power to license, but the superintendent must issue certain licenses that are requested by LEAs. That is counterintuitive to me. If the superintendent must issue, then it takes away the board's discretion to license, I believe. I've commented before on the appeals panel for compelling circumstances. That it's line 239, I think, on the most recent version. I think that it is really important to have a professional appeals panel, and I think the superintendent appointing staff members does not satisfy that, because I think even if it's just an appearance, it doesn't seem to be an objective panel that would then perhaps overcall their boss. So I hope we can reconsider that professional panel and make it something that would be outside, at least one person or 2 people from outside the office, so that it would be more objective and certainly have a more not distinguished, because there's nobody who knows licensing like the people in this office, but I think it would have a more objective sense to it if it was a panel that included those from outside the office. The third thing, 2 more things. One is that I think it is, Travis gave me the best explanation that I've heard yet. I don't think the board should take on requests from licenses from private schools. I think that is crazy, wrong. I even arguably don't think we have the authority to do that. The board has authority over the public school system, not private schools. And I don't think we should take on that responsibility, and I hope we rethink that going forward. His point to me was that otherwise private schools, because they want licensed teachers, are asking for letters of authorization, which will no longer exist under this construct. So I get what the problem is he's trying to solve, or it's trying to be solved, but I don't think it is efficiently or effectively or probably legally solved by taking responsibility from requests from private schools. And then finally, on 334, it requires educators, again, private school as well as public school educators, to take the ethics review. Private schools are not bound by many of the issues in the ethics review. They're not bound by FERPA. They don't have to serve students with disabilities. They can discriminate. I think it is a sort of a ruse or a false pretense that these teachers would take this test when their employer doesn't require them to abide by it. I think we need to rethink that whole notion. And while I'm on that, this ethics review isn't a test, it is a review. You can't fail it. I think while we're in the throes of changing this licensing process, we ought to look at a really meaningful ethics test that, like other professions do, that would mean something, not that a person can't fail. And I hope we will. It'll be a lot of work. I know it's taking on a big project, but I hope we don't pretend that this ethics review means anything once we're in this overhaul process. So thank you for letting me say those things.
Okay. Thank you, and I have 4 items. I believe that was what was on your list. You had 3 and you added 1 more. Okay, thank you. That's keeping track here. Board Member Warner.
Before we continue, I'd like to make two amendments to the motion to approve it. 2. Just one's a little one and one's a little bit bigger. I would like to amend on line 243, on this newest one, from 60 days to 30 days, that the personalized professional learning plan is put into effect within 30 days of employment. So that's the first one.
Okay, we have an amendment to change on line 243, 60 days to 30 days. Do we have a second? We have a second. Will you speak to your motion?
I just think that it needs to happen really quickly. If we're going to have an associate educator in the classroom, 30 days from the time they're hired. And a lot of times, we see people hired June, July. There's time to put together a professional learning plan. And I just think that if we're going to have qualified teachers in the classrooms, we need to jump on board with that and get it as quick as possible.
Okay. We're going to speak to that amendment. Board Member Lisa Cummins.
If I recall correctly, the argument for the 60 days was that some teachers don't even get hired until closer to the beginning of school, and because of everything going on and being set up, sometimes that evaluation is the last on the list, so that's why it was extended to 60 days. Would an amendment to the amendment be appropriate of 45 days, or is that if we wanted to meet in the middle?
You can make an amendment to the amendment if you want.
Yeah, you can make that amendment.
Okay, I'd like to make an amendment to the amendment and make it 45 days, within the first 45 days of employment.
Okay, we have a second.
I'll second that.
Okay. The amendment to the amendment is that on line 243 that we move from 60 days to 45 days. So we're going to speak to the amendment to the amendment. Vice Chair Brittany Cummins.
So this is the fun of picking numbers out of the sky and hoping they work. And I can't find it in the rule yet. And so I guess the question is part of this requirement of setting up this plan was that they had to observe? Do they have to observe before the plan is established? And so if you're hired in June and you're not in a classroom until August something, then the timing of that. And so I don't know if we want to change it to something where, it has to be in place how many days after the start of school, so that way it takes into account all of the requirements that we have in other parts. If I'm understanding it correctly, I can't find all the pieces right at the moment, so.
And can I get Angie to speak to the word hired? Because a lot of people get hired in the spring, but they don't get their contract until the middle of the summer, and sometimes they don't get their contract till after they start. But that's, their hire date is different than a contractual date and a start date. So I know teachers are being hired this week for this fall. Okay. Yeah, I'm going to turn it on here just in a second.
Yes, thank you, Chair. My guess, employment's not defined, but I would agree with you, it's not the hire date. The employment date would likely be like July 1, because I think most educator contracts go for a full calendar year starting July 1. So if you were to read this literally, it probably would trigger that they'd need to do this by August 1 if the contract were entered into before July 1. So maybe that is something to consider. I wasn't part of the licensing task force, so I'm not sure if they were talking about hiring versus school days and what the intent was.
Okay,
You could
so who
maybe-
wants to speak?
Travis, you have ideas?
Board Member Cummins? Do I have you? I don't have you on. Just a sec. I think I, hold it. There we go. Okay, you're on.
So Lorraine, maybe you can direct me to edit my amendment. Can I add within the first 45 days of the first day of school? Because if they're doing the evaluation, or no?
Okay. Yeah, just one sec. Before
gotta define
before that answered, I think somebody wants to get in.
Okay,
I know, then we'll, yeah.
so we need to start over.
Board Member Reeve, do
Sorry.
you want to comment to
Yes.
this to the amendment to the amendment?
Yes, I do. So as a teacher with a personalized professional learning plan, I think it would be in our best interest to give teachers 20 days of working on the job or whatever amount we determine, and then 30 days after that, because how do you create a professional learning plan if you haven't even started your job yet? So I would ask that we have the teachers work for a semester or 20 days, then give us 30 working days after that. So you could say 20 working days in a classroom, and then 30 working days after that, they should have their professional learning plan in place.
That's fair.
Because you have to work to see what you need to work on.
Yeah, that's true. That's fair. I can pull my motion or mine.
Okay, so we're in this odd place where we pretty well know that we're not going to be in compliance with a 45 and maybe even 60 when people are actually hired or under contract, that they won't even be in a classroom. And so, Angie, do you have, I mean, I've got to clean up these amendments.
Yes. So Travis
So
and
to
he's
speak
here.
to this particular amendment where we're talking about 45,
Yes,
days.
and so I think Board Member Reeby was trying to help us draft it by saying working days, although I could argue working days, you could be going in the classroom, okay. So we could do something like that. Travis was explaining to me that there's oftentimes where he has used, we have used in other rules within the first day in the classroom, within 30 days of their first day in the classroom.
can you find a place to maybe put this in? Because I'm going to, if everyone agrees that we can pull the amendment or the two, well, we have an amendment to amendment and the amendment. I'm suggesting that we pull both and then roll our sleeves up and get to where this other sweet spot that we're trying to get to. Does anyone object to that?
And then I have an
Okay. Taking the privilege to do that as the chair. So now we're back into some language that is being crafted right now. So a very good question. I appreciate the feedback from educators.
Okay.
Okay, while they're working on that, is there any other proposed, is there any other discussion while this is being
Oh.
talked about, so we can stay kind of busy on this? I have Board Member Reeby. Oh, Board Member Warner?
Is it appropriate to just ask for one additional motion, which is to just approve, if we're going to approve this, that we approve it on second reading instead of final? Because we have some, or bring it back because we have some serious issues to deal with. So I'm just wondering, while we're doing this and while we're.
Why don't you make an amendment
So I'm-
to the original motion?
So my other amendment would be that we,
Well, you don't have another because I took all of yours away.
oh, come on, give
Now,
me them
this is a
back.
new one.
Okay, so a new motion would be that we amend bringing this back on, and bring it back next month
as,
as second. Second reading. And if I'd like to speak to that, oh, is anybody going to second that?
let me see if I can do that.
Okay. Okay.
It's not to pass, you don't want it to pass on second reading, you want to bring it back.
Right,
So the
because we've
amendment
got
would
some
be-
issues that came up today in executive session that we need to hammer out before we go forward on this.
So the amendment would be that
I'm
it
not gonna go
comes
into
back
details.
as R277-501
Uh-huh.
draft 6 on second reading. Is that what you're trying to say? So it comes back.
Yes.
Do you want this to be a reading?
I just want it to come back on second reading next month until we hammer out some of the issues that we discussed in the executive session.
Okay, but.
Bring it back here to the whole full board
The committee
until we get it hit. Oh, okay,
No,
Laura.
I-
what-
was first reading. Is this second?
Second reading.
This is second reading, then you'd be bringing it back on.
Yeah, there is a motion, yeah, but this is to amend the motion. The motion is, let me throw it out, that the board approve R277-501, draft 5 on second and final reading.
No,
You can,
second reading.
that's a motion. So you need to either take something away or
I want
add
to take
something.
and final out.
So that's,
Yes, to second reading. Because
And-
we had a huge discussion in exec.
Next time it'll be third and final.
Yeah,
Okay,
so next
so
time,
it's-
yeah.
okay. So your motion is to take, your amendment to the motion is to take out and final reading.
Yes.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion to that? Seeing none, let's vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay. One.
Oh, come on. Okay, I can turn my mic.
Okay, so with that, just so that you know, we are done. We are done. So this language that they're working on this start day and all that is going to come back next month. Okay? So we're really clear, so we're managing everyone's expectations. Are you clear, Chair?
No, we withdrew the amendment. Oh, you're right, we have to, yeah, we've got to vote now.
Hold it.
We made an amendment.
Oh, that's right. Okay, thank you. Okay, so we have to vote on the original amended amendment to follow Robert's rules, which is that the board approve R277-501 draft 5 on second reading. Okay, so it's coming back. So we're approving it on second, now it's coming back. So I'm not seeing any discussion, so now we're going to vote on it. All in favor say aye. Those opposed? That would be Board Member Belknap. It- Okay. Motion passes. Okay, that concludes your report, Chair Bolter. There's nothing else, correct? Okay, we're going to take a 10-minute break, and we will have standards and assessment on deck ready to take care of business.